Hey friends, welcome to a new chapter of Old Man Brad. Whether you are new here or you're returning for another chapter, thank you so much for giving me a listen. If you love the show, go drop a review over on your favorite podcatcher, whether that be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Good Pods, wherever you listen. I would love to hear what you think of the show. This week I have another great interview for you. I sat down and chatted with Alex DiVincenzo. He is the co-writer, co-director of a new ASMR horror film, Reverberance. He also runs Simply Legendary Publicity, where he does a lot of the publicity for Fright Regs and Screambox, just to name a few. And we talk a little Screambox and a little bit of what they kind of had going on this year, next year, and so forth. Before we jump into that interview, though, I just want to say, we're coming up at the end of the year. I'm going to have my top horror movie episode coming out here soon. I'm going to break down some of my favorites from this past year. I'll probably give you a few that were my least favorites as well. But just subscribe so you don't miss that. We had, some wild there were a lot of horror this year. I know I'll dig into it and talk about it more. We had storybook horror when you had the Three Blind Mice, Mary Had a Little Lamb, Winnie the Pooh had a horror movie. We had Killer Sloths. We had Exorcists, whether it was singular or plural, and so much more. I cannot wait to reveal my top horror movies for the year of everything that I watched. Obviously, I didn't get to see it all, but I cannot wait to reveal that to you all. Just follow me over on social media at ToBeTuesday, or you can email me, oldmanbradpodcast@gmail.com. Let me know some of your favorite horror movies from 2023. See if we kind of align when that comes out. All right, enough of this beginning ramble. Let's move into my interview with Alex, and I will talk to you on the other side. I am so excited to welcome in Alex DiVincenzo, the writer and director of the ASMR short film Reverberance, and he works for Simply Legendary Publicity, doing a lot of publicity for Screambox. So I'm excited to talk to him about all these things. How you doing today, Alex?
I'm doing great. Thank you for having me. I know a lot of my things are a mouthful, so good job getting all that out.
saying publicity a couple times and and the last name. I was like, wow, I've never had to do this so much. So tell me about your short film Reverberance. It is an ASMR horror film. When you sent this out and I watched it, it was like, oh, this is a neat concept of something I would never ever thought of doing or searching out.
Well, thank you. First of all, thank you for checking it out. Thank you for having me on. But yeah, Reverberance, I co-wrote and co-directed with TJ Frizzy, who's one of my best friends. I've been making shorts for close to a decade now. I think my first one came out in 2014, Horrors of Autocorrect, which got picked up by Crypt TV, which Eli Roth co-owned. I don't know if he's still involved, but he was at the time. So that was exciting. And I've basically been making like one short a year on average. So I've made like 10 or so.
Okay.
On 2, now 3 with Reverberance. I've co-written with TJ. He's a big horror fan. That's actually how we became friends. And he's helped out. He was always, an extra set of hands on my sets. So he pitched me a couple ideas. We again made a couple of them. He acted in a couple of them. Reverberance is our latest one. He came to me with the concept initially, and then we worked it out together in script form. It was originally a little more complex, so we kind of streamlined it. My preference when it comes to short films, both making and viewing, is to keep them like 5 minutes or less, if possible, like 10 minutes maximum. It's really hard to get someone to commit, whether it's a film festival, they only have enough room for X amount of shorts, or whether you're sending someone a link and it's, if they see it's over, double digits in minute length. Yeah. Speaking from my own personal experience, even if it's like a filmmaker I like, or, a friend of mine, like I'll open it, I'll have every intention to watch it, but it's probably just going to sit open on a tab for a while and then I'll accidentally close it out before I remember. So yeah, I try to, get in, get out, tell a quick story. And as we were writing it, I think TJ's initial concept, there was only like one line of dialogue. I was like, well, why don't we just not have any dialogue and like see how that comes out? And then that kind of evolved into, actually it was a very last minute decision, like right before we started shooting. Like, what if we go, since we're already dialogue free, what if we kind of work the sound design to be ASMR style? So that's what we did. It was kind of a experiment. We weren't sure what it would be like. We weren't sure if people were still going to care or know what ASMR was by the time it finally came out. So we shot this in like fall of 2019, and then the pandemic happened. So even though it's only 3.5 minutes long, to get the post-production done, we had to wait for people to, have the time and be healthy and safe. So finally started playing festivals last year, and then we just put it online now. And yeah, we're very happy with how it came out and that people still care.
And now you said kind of last second, you kind of switch gears to add this ASMR piece since there's no dialogue. What was that challenge like to be like, okay, we're not going to have dialogue, but now we have to kind of like really think of sounds around, what's happening?
It didn't affect the production so much because we always knew that sound was even before we decided to go dialogue free, the whole idea was kind of built around sound. I mean, for anyone who has watched it, it's a creature that kind of mimics sounds, and then things escalate from there. So we knew that was going to be important. We knew the sound design was going to be important. We had a good sound guy, Kevin Hagen, on our team. So it was really in post-production where it became more challenging. It was about, getting the right score. I had an awesome friend of mine, Brian Luttrell, compose the score. And I sent him some like ASMR style, like synthy, like relaxing, almost like meditation music, to kind of use as a reference point. And he had composed my previous short, so we had a great rapport there. He delivered that well. And then Kevin Hagen, who is our sound guy on set, also was our sound mixer. And we kind of explained the idea to him, and he was all about it. He was happy to kind of do something outside of his wheelhouse of general, production audio.
Was he excited to be like, ooh, I can take the big mic out and I can get all kinds of like noises and stuff?
So we have my favorite sound effect in the movie. It's a tie actually. It opens with these wooden wind chimes, which are kind of like a unique like bamboo sound, which I love. And then we have our main actress pours birdseed into this like long bird feeder. It almost sounds like a rain stick.
Yes, it does.
I don't know. I really love those. So we got to really crank those up in the mix. So you especially if you watch it with headphones, I think it worked out really well.
Obviously, you kind of had to slow things down due to pandemic, and now you got to kind of put it out there in festivals. And what's the journey of this short kind of been like for you? I mean, you said this is your 10th short film. How is this one different than, say, previous ones?
The biggest difference, pandemic notwithstanding, was co-directing.
Okay.
In the grand scheme of things. Initially, the concept was floated for TJ, again, my friend. He was just going to direct. We wrote it together. I was going to produce. And then ultimately the decision was made that, just to kind of team up and go at it together so he could have kind of a support system because it was his first short.
Okay.
So that was a little bit of a challenge. And then with every short, it gets harder and harder to just reach people. There's such a never ending stream of content out there. A short film on YouTube. Yeah. A short film on YouTube is competing with, not only everything else that's uploaded to YouTube every day, but also everything that's on every streaming service and whatever movies in the theaters. So it's really hard to just kind of cut through the noise and reach people. That's why I'm so grateful for people like you who not only took the time to watch it, but then you're going to talk about it. You're going to let me babble on about it. It really is. I mean, there's no return on investment for short films. It costs some money to make. It costs money to play festivals, and then you put it online and you hope it finds people, but you're not going to make money on it. But I mean, that's just kind of the life of a short, and I'm okay with that. If I have an extra weekend, free time, a free day, and my options are, work on a short, whether it's my own or anyone else's. I work on a lot of friends' stuff too. Whether it's work on a short or just sit around and whatever, watch TV, I'll choose the short, a production every time, because it's particularly with a short film, it's low commitment, but you still have something cool at the end of the day, something that marks, this time in our lives. We made this little thing, and now it's out there for other people to enjoy and hopefully discover.
I'll definitely have a link to the short film here in my description for the episode, so people can go check it out. I mean, it's a little over 3 minutes, so it's a quick, easy watch for sure. And do you have any ideas for the next? What's the next shorts you're rambling around in your brain of like what could be next?
Yes, I have another short complete called Pocket Money.
Okay,
which is not horror. It's kind of a heist with a comedic twist. Again, it's another super short, under 5-minute thing. We'll hopefully be hitting festivals early next year. We're just wrapping up post-production on it now. Not sure what I'll actually shoot next. I'm always kind of kicking around ideas. This Pocket Money is my first time not doing something horror at all. I mean, it's like vaguely, it has dark atmosphere, I guess you'd say, before the comedy is introduced.
Was that a little bit of a challenge if you've done predominantly horror before, of trying to kind of pull back from it a little bit?
Not a challenge per se, but almost like a mental thing, because I'm the horror guy, you know what I mean? Like that's my thing. I love it. I embrace it. I accept it. And it really wasn't even like trying to stretch other muscles, because my early shorts were all like horror comedy. So, and horror and comedy kind of in terms of, structure and pacing and editing, they're pretty similar, particularly in a shorts. It's a setup and a punchline, whether it's horror or
punchline to kill. They kind of gotta,
yeah, exactly. So honestly, what I think is going to be the biggest challenge is like, what do I do with it when I'm ready to put it out there? Because, I'm used to playing horror film festivals. I'm used to, sending it out to horror journalists, horror outlets. My production company YouTube channel, where it will ultimately live, is all horror shorts. So it's like, I hope people care. I hope people like it. But if not, I don't want to give it away, because like it kind of lives and dies by its twist, not in like an M. Night Shyamalan kind of way, but more just in like it's like a gag, and if you give away a gag, that's short. But
I get it. Yep, I totally understand.
It's a very, I don't want to say dumb idea, but just like goofy idea that was super, super fun to put together, and shot in like an old mansion. So that was cool.
And so when you're not doing short films and watching horror movies, you have Simply Legendary Publicity, where you get to work with Screambox. How is that for you, especially, working with Screambox, doing this type of stuff along with your shorts? Do you find yourself I've known some people and kind of weave in between a lot of that thing to kind of get the word of things out there?
Yeah, big time. I started doing the publicity as a means to promote movies that I was working on. I was working on friends' movies before I started making my own. And I was just like, because I had written for a bunch of horror websites. So I amassed a bunch of contacts. And when I worked on like my first movie as a crew member, I was like, so I have all these people, let me just email them and see who will post about it. And like, it got some coverage on some of the bigger horror sites. It just kind of snowballed from there. I use it to as is the reason we're talking today, I use it to promote my own stuff. But it snowballed to get other clients. Fright Rags is another big one of mine. And yeah, so when Screambox was relaunched under Bloody Disgusting, I also write for Bloody Disgusting. Around that same time where I started writing for them, they were looking for someone to be kind of their in-house publicist. And so my name was brought up because I'd worked with them before on the publicity end, before the writing end. So it's been really fun to be kind of part of it from the ground floor.
They've really kind of, especially, I would probably say the last 2 years, it's kind of like this really huge uptick for them, because when they first came out, I was like, oh, what's this kind of, and you just kind of follow it, and then you're like, oh, they're getting this movie. Terrifier 2 was a huge thing for them. How is, being on that side to kind of see this cool, like, horror, horror movies in general are just on this rise right now, which is awesome.
It's amazing. I can't lie. It sounds, I don't mean to sound like pretentious, because I have very little to do with the acquisition side of it or anything like that. But to just be involved and see it come together has been so rewarding. Like you said, it's been about 2 years. So Screambox existed in another form under previous ownership. Like, I don't even know the years, a decade ago, maybe, early on in the streaming era. But it was predominantly like, no budget, no name indie stuff that was just like acquired for cheap and then put up for streaming for cheap. And there's nothing wrong with that. I love a lot of no budget movies. But it was not really sustainable, I don't think. So Cineverse acquired Screambox as an entity around the same time that they acquired Bloody Disgusting, the horror website. They gave Bloody Disgusting kind of the keys to the castle. And they were like, we want to relaunch this. We want to curate it. We want to, fine tune it and make it like, a viable horror streaming service. Because, I mean, obviously, Screambox is not the first horror streaming service or, not the most popular, but like the growth we've shown in the last couple of years, I'm very proud of. Like you said, yeah. So shortly after Bloody Disgusting took over and it was relaunched, at first people weren't really sure what to make of it. Our first big acquisition was Freddy's Nightmares. That was like, we were the first place you could stream it. It's since showed up on like Tubi and stuff. But at the time, it was the first time you could stream it. So that kind of put it on some people's radar. And then we got our first big original was Pennywise, the Story of It, which is a really cool documentary about the 1990 miniseries version of it. And then not long after that, Terrifier 2 came along. And that just obviously, has been our biggest thing to date and just really made people who otherwise would have never heard or probably not for several years would have heard about Screambox were suddenly, subscribers, or even if they don't subscribe, they see the logo because it's up at the beginning of the movie on, played in theaters. It had a wildly successful, way over anybody's estimations theatrical run last year.
Oh yeah, it was huge theatrically. I was surprised because
we were too. Like we knew it had an audience, it had a dedicated fan base, and I mean that's why we got involved and that's why we went with the theatrical run. But the way it snowballed into like a media frenzy, for lack of a better word, like the fact, it was being talked about on like Howard Stern, it was being talked about on like pro wrestling, like there's just references everywhere, and then like people passing out, people throwing up. It was like you couldn't buy that kind of publicity. It was like it sold itself.
Yeah. I talked to Damien at Horror Hound here in Cincinnati before it was acquired by Screambox, and he was just like struggling just to get someone to take it, of like people want to cut it, people want this, want that, and we're hoping to get it out by Halloween. And when it did, I was surprised how well it just like it kind of, like you said, it kind of sold itself. People, all these stories everywhere of like people passing out and this, and then you kind of got that Screambox name in kind of in front of people's eyes. And how has this year, like, what are some highlights for this year for 2023 for Screambox?
Big question.
I know for me, it would be Onyx and the.
That was the movie might go to. That love that movie. That's so fun. That was another one that did really well for us in theaters. The Blu-ray just came out today as of recording this. If you dug the movie, the Blu-ray. I'm a big audio commentary guy, so that is three different tracks plus a bunch of like behind the scenes stuff, some old Onyx videos. That one's been really cool.
Does Andrew do a commentary as Onyx?
Not on here, but if you backed the movie on Kickstarter, he's doing an exclusive one just for Kickstarter backers. No, that was an awesome one because I've been a fan of Onyx's videos for years. So it's been really cool to work with him. From the same team, we have RoboDoc, documentary about the RoboCop movie, a 4-part docuseries, basically breaking it down scene by scene with almost every living person involved in the franchise, which has been incredible. And from the same team, Hollywood Dreams and Nightmares, the Robert Englund story, which is a documentary about Robert Englund, obviously best known for playing Freddy Krueger, but this really kind of goes through his filmography, almost film by film, and just kind of like a couple little anecdotes, you hear from his collaborators, contemporaries. Just a really cool documentary. And I feel that's kind of a space that Screambox has been carving out for itself. A little niche is within the horror documentary space, because in addition to those I mentioned, I mean, we've had a bunch of other cool ones. We released one on Clue. We have one on Pet Cemetery. We have the one about Pennywise I mentioned. We have ones on Creepshow, Fright Night, Hellraiser. Really stuff that I would seek out even if I weren't, working with Screambox.
Now, as kind of its popularity has kind of grown, like publicity for you, has it kind of, I don't want to say gotten easier, but it's kind of like that easier. People know who they are. So when you're like talking about, hey, this Screambox original is coming out, people are like, oh yeah, we know who they are, and kind of helps you out.
Yes, 100% made my job easier. Again, Terrifier, it all kind of comes back to, but but even still, there was like, people who weren't necessarily Terrifier fans. Onyx, the Fortuitous, did bring in, because he had his own kind of built-in fan base, brought in a lot of people who maybe weren't aware of the service, maybe aren't necessarily like the straightforward horror fan, but now they know of the name Screambox. It's helped. The Outwaters is another big one that came out earlier this year that kind of helped people see what we were about, I guess is a way to put it. That was totally different. It's like found footage, cosmic horror, nightmare.
It gets intense. There's a couple scenes that get pretty intense.
It was, not everyone loved it. It was very divisive, which is, every movie is, but it's made a bunch of like esteemed top 10 lists this year. We're seeing it pop up on a bunch, which is very exciting. As
we're finishing up the year, is there anything that you can talk to of, what Screambox might have, coming in the future? What to look out for here probably in the next few months, because you probably can't go too far into the future.
Yeah. Terrifier 3 is the big one that everyone's talking about. That will be in theaters in October 2024. It is a Christmas movie, but it'll be out for Halloween, because art is kind of synonymous with Halloween. But it will be streaming sometime after that, probably by Christmas. Don't quote me on that, but
we won't hold you to it.
Honestly, it really depends on how it does in theaters, because the when part 2 came out, we kept extending. It kept doing well, so we kept extending the theatrical. So we hope it does great. More than likely, you'll be able to stream it by Christmas. We have a remake of Street Trash coming out from the director of Fried Barry, which is, I don't know if you've seen that, but it's a wild movie. And
it is something. I'll just say that.
It's something. That's the one way to put it. You see that and you hear like that guy's making a Street Trash. At least me, I was like, oh, I'm excited to see what that becomes. And Vinegar Syndrome's co-producing that. So I think that's going to be a wild one that people are going to enjoy. We also have I can't say what it is, but another recognizable IP remake reboot thing
coming
in the works, coming in 2024, that I think people will be excited about.
Okay.
And then we always have a bunch of every month we have originals and exclusives dropping that are, you might not have heard of them prior to them dropping, but I think once they do, they'll often build a little bit of buzz. We just had like a bunch of Christmas ones we released recently. We have Night of the Missing, which is a pretty cool Christmas horror anthology.
I enjoyed that one quite a bit.
Yeah. Secret Santa, which is like a horror comedy wild ride from the director of Jason Goes to Hell. As of today that we're recording this, Santa Stein, which is exactly what it sounds like, Frankenstein with Santa as like a slasher. Stuff like that again, you may not have heard of prior to it being on Screambox, but once it's on there, people are talking about it, people are watching it. There's, watch parties on Twitter, cool stuff like that.
Yeah.
It's been really cool to see, like, from our perspective, looking out at the horror community, kind of being embraced and being mentioned in the same breath as Shudder. Like, we know Shudder is the top dog in horror streaming, and we're happy to be mentioned alongside them. I love Shudder. I've been a Shudder subscriber since the beginning. We love Joe Bob. We love all that stuff, all the stuff that they do. But I think there's room for both of us. I think we're doing different things.
Absolutely.
We're catering to different markets. We're also both collectively getting people's eyes on independent and foreign horror that otherwise maybe wouldn't have a home. Maybe would just end up on, some other streaming service where it's buried. Whereas if it ends up on one of ours, we'll actually promote the hell out of it. So yeah, I think it says a lot about the horror as a genre as a whole and the community, that both of us, both Screambox, and Shudder, can kind of succeed and do good, and people will support them both.
Alex, as we kind of head out, where can people kind of follow along for you for like short films and other said things for social media or wherever?
I have like a million things, so let me give me a sec. My personal Twitter, or X, I refuse to call it X, it's Twitter, is Twitter, Alex is Legend. You can find me there, and that's where I promote all my stuff and post whatever movies I'm watching.
Okay.
I also run a site called Broke Horror Fan, brokehorrorfan.com, which highlights like horror movie merchandise and memorabilia. That's also, you can also find Broke Horror Fan on Twitter and Instagram. The Instagram is I use it as kind of a combination of personal, but relative to horror stuff. That's at Broke Horror Fan. And then I run the Screambox socials. So if you want any Screambox recommendations, at Screambox TV on Instagram and Twitter, I'll be the one who responds. So make it good.
Okay.
And of course, Screambox.com. Sign up if you're not already.
Yes.
I truly think it's worth the small amount per month or bigger savings per year. We have a lot of cool stuff in store. I wish I could say more, but I promise it'll be worthwhile.
Thank you, Alex, for coming on and talking to me. And everybody go check out his short film and his other short films. I'll have links in the description to check it out. And yeah, sign up for Screambox. I love it. It's definitely one that's kind of grown on me as you know, the past few years have gone along with the things that you've been getting. But good luck with everything in the future. And, you know, we'll be in touch for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, please have me back anytime.
Once again, I want to thank Alex for talking to me. And if you're not subscribed to Screambox, I highly recommend doing so. Their library is just growing and growing and just getting better and better by the month. I enjoy a lot of the films they have on there. I mean, obviously, you have the Terrifier films. Recently, you had Santa Stein, Night of the Missing, Onyx the Fortuitous is on there. Previous episode, I talked to the minds behind Heebie Jeebie TV, which is on Screambox. Shaky Shivers, one of my favorite movies recently. And of course, we can't forget Subspecies 5, Blood Rise, one of my favorites in that entire series. I love the Subspecies series. And of course, the only place that you can stream Adam Chaplin. I was so excited when they got this on Screambox. But yeah, go subscribe to Screambox. Go check them out. They have some great documentaries and just a lot of awesome stuff over there. And before I go, I'm going to give you two. I mean, I've already given you Adam Chaplin before to check out, Onyx the Fortuitous previously. But I'm going to give you two movies that you should go watch on Screambox if you are a subscriber. And if you're not, become one and go check these movies out. First up is Crabs. This is a movie that I saw at Horror Hound a couple years ago, and I got a chance to talk to the director. This is just a silly, silly, fun movie, kind of a throwback to like a Gremlins-esque creature feature with some big old school Godzilla fights at the end. This is such a fun movie. I absolutely love Crabs and highly, highly recommend checking it out. Just for a good evening watching a movie. And then the other one that I'm going to mention, I just mentioned it just a few moments ago, and that is Shaky Shivers. This is a film that is directed by Sung Kang, who you would know from the Fast and the Furious franchise. But this is another just silly comedy, almost American Werewolf in London. You can see some influences from that and other said things. But this is a funny, just two friends trying to figure out a situation and just a blast. This is another one that I saw at Horror Hound here in Cincinnati a few years ago and absolutely loved it. Definitely would highly recommend checking out Shaky Shivers. And we're coming up soon. Horror Hound is coming to Cincinnati in March. I have a blast every time I go to Horror Hound. I focus in mostly on watching the indie horror films and getting interviews with some of the filmmakers. It is so much fun. Everybody there is absolutely amazing. The horror community is awesome. And I'm so glad to be a part of it. Horror Hound is just a few months away. I cannot wait for this year. Well, that will do it for a new chapter of Old Man Brad. Just make sure you subscribe to the show so you never miss any chapters or any of my episodes in my Tales from Tubi series. I have some great ones in the works coming for you in 2024. And stay tuned. My top horror films of 2023 episode will be dropping very shortly. Remember, snuggle up in that blanket, turn off the lights, because it's okay to be scared. We'll talk to you later, everybody.